welcome you to another live edition of the Sports Box, brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports in Hamilton. Showcase Sports for the elite athlete. And by our friends over at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and check them out at www.crowdplayapp.com for details. Ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime.
Hey everybody, welcome to Cage by IQ. I'm your host, D-Bake. Joining with me as always, my co-host, Miles Long. How's it going, Miles?
I'm good. I finally bounced back from the shitty symptoms you get after that second Moderna shot. Put me out for like 2 days. Fortunately, I didn't get the worst of it. I only had a little bit of fever and for like a night, and then I was okay. I was a little bit shaky because I wasn't eating while I was feverish in bed, but after that I was good. So now I feel good. I'm double vaccinated. I'm good to go now. So I'm ready for the booster shots whenever those get put out there. So overall, feeling pretty good today.
That sounds good. I know how that is. I got mine a couple weeks ago. I basically put out my whole Thursday just to recuperate from it. I was pretty tired and then drank a lot of water like they tell you to do. So I did that. And then by the next day, I was good to go. And now I'm 2 weeks in. They said it takes 2 weeks for you to be fully vaxxed and good to go, like after you get that second shot. Okay,
so this is my first week then, because I had started feeling it Monday night.
Yeah.
And by like Tuesday, I slept until 4 o'clock on Tuesday. I was so out of it, but yeah. So this is my first week. One more week, I guess, which I'm still doing classes anyways. It's not like I'm going anywhere, so that works out.
But today we will be recapping UFC Fight Night, Dominick Reyes versus Jiri Prochazka. How did you feel about this fight card in general?
This fight card was interesting. It didn't look like it was going to be as fun as it was just because of who was on the card. It was kind of cool that most of the fights were ranked fighters, except for like that one with Kudalaba and Jacoby. They weren't ranked, but everybody else had like a ranking except for there was Jotko, I think wasn't ranked, but everybody else was somewhere.
Jotko. Yeah. And then the Kudalaba and Justin Jacoby was the fight where they had that crazy the stare off where Kudalaba basically pushed him he grabbed his head forward out of nowhere for no reason at all, and that got a lot of flack back on it, which it should have, because for some reason, like, you shouldn't be grabbing your opponent, especially when he's not even talking trash on you yet. Like, it was just standing there going like this, and then boom,
he just wanted a kiss. He just wanted to kiss him.
I know.
He couldn't fight it. He's like, that's a sexy man right there.
we got my guy 2 cents coming from D. Sup, Miles. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, he was on earlier today. Always check out his podcast. It usually comes on like 4:30 Eastern time. And he usually goes on for like 2.5 hours, as always. So check his thing out at Just My 2 Cents on YouTube. You won't regret it. But other than that, what did you think of the whole Diego Sanchez dilemma that they went through over the past week or two?
So I'm kind of disappointed so many things on that card happened. That looked like it was going to be a good card, and this is just like one of the things apparently that just came up, fucked everything up. But I was reading about it just before we came on stream, and it seems like it's like a real mess of a situation. Yeah. So from what I'm gathering from this article here, basically what seems to happen is that Diego Sanchez's manager, one Joshua Fabia? I'm going to go Fabia. I don't even know how you say that.
Fabian.
But, so apparently they reached out to the UFC medical team for some reason.
Okay. Yeah.
And they were requesting medical records for something. It was very odd. I don't know what the intention, like what the initial purpose was for, but basically they were denied access to these records. And this happened after, Sanchez had already done he said he had already gone through like the test to make sure he was physically capable of competing. And then after the fact, He apparently said that his advisors, so I think he means his manager, Joshua Fabia, came back and said that the UFC wants him to say that they don't have, or that he doesn't have any neurological damage as a result of his fighting career, because that would make the UFC look bad. So that seems to be his side of this. There's another piece to it where people are saying that Joshua Fabia is kind of a grifter, and he might be just like, apparently he's like slowly taken over Sanchez's training career and kind of made him do his own weird training methods from his company called School of Self-Awareness, which is apparently, I've got it up here. It's a very weird sort of mix of things. It's it's like yoga meets chakra stuff, like weird chi meditation things, meets like rudimentary MMA or like self-defense training. It's very odd. It's like one of those weird holistic training places, it looks like. But apparently, because of his relationship with Sanchez, this Joshua Fabia has kind of strong-armed him into, really doing his style of training more than like a traditional gym or even like a America Top Team, that sort of thing. But he basically, because of that relationship, Sanchez was more inclined to trust his manager. And so he was like, we're done. We're pulling out. I don't want to fuck with UFC anymore. That's what I've been able to gather here. It's still a mess.
I know he pulled out of the fight, and then literally a day later, Dana White was like, "Fuck this guy, release," and he released him. Literally a day later, and the whole thing came up about his manager, and everybody's like, "This manager is basically ruining his career, or what's left at the end of his career with all this, which sucks." Yeah. But that's Diego's fault for trusting this guy, I guess.
I think this guy's like a straight up con man. I don't think it's it's his fault for trusting him. I think he trusted the wrong person 16 years ago, and this guy's just been working on him for his whole career to distance him from the UFC MMA community and push him towards his weird holistic Tai Chi self-defense, whatever the fuck he's got going on community. And I think he's just trying to capitalize on this guy's reputation, milk him for everything he's worth. And then as soon as nobody cares about Diego Sanchez anymore, he's not going to have anything to do with him. So
watch he's going to appear. Watch he's going to come out and appear in Jorge Masvidal's bare knuckle fight club now. He's going to appear in that now.
Oh, I mean, you get jobs where you can get them. That's the thing, As a professional fighter, you don't turn down fights. That's how you put food on the table. So.
Exactly. But let's get started with the first fight on this fight card recap, which was a men's bantamweight bout, which saw Merab, I'm not even going to try to say his last name, Davalishvili, defeating Cody Stamann by unanimous decision. What did you take from this fight?
Davishvili, I think is how they were saying it. Davishvili, I think. I don't know. So anyway, that guy, he basically won this fight because he was more active and he kept up the really good pace throughout the entire fight. I had this one 2-1, Davishvili, however you say that. Because man, he came out really strong with the striking, and he was pretty much outstriking Stamann from round one. Excuse me. Oof. Because Stamann was trying to force a grappling situation, but he just kept getting either stuffed, caught with punches, or in the couple instances when he was successful, Davishvili just kind of found his way back to his feet and just put it back in the striking game. So I think Stamann wasted a lot of time in the first round trying to get those takedowns that just weren't going to happen. So I think that was an easy win for the first round. And the second round, Stamann came a little bit more alive. He was like, all right, I'm not going to do this whole try to get a takedown thing as much. I'm just going to try to stand and trade and inflict damage as much as I can. And he was pretty good for, I would say, the beginning minute and a half or so. But then he started to fade after that second takedown. After that, he just he petered out. He had a strong start, but I felt like because Davishvili had 4 takedowns and he was doing a fair amount of volume in that round, that was another easy one for Davishvili. Goddamn, how many times am I going to say that name? But then in the third round, I actually gave the third round to Stamann by a very narrow margin. because he slowed down and he was like, all right, I'm not going to win this by like submission. I'm not going to win this by fucking decision. So my last hope is to take the counteroffensive and look for those big knockout opportunities. And that's what he was doing. He was being a lot more careful, picking his shots. The knockout opportunity never came, but it did allow him to get the better end of a lot of those striking exchanges, mostly because Dvalishvili, I think he got excited. I think he was looking for the knockout too, and he got sloppy. Like some of those strikes were just so wild that Stamen just kind of moved out the way, and then he was able to tag him a few times. But overall, yeah, this was a 2-1 victory for Dvalishvili. I don't think there's any bracket movement needed on this. I mean, it was already like 13-14, I think was the setup. But yeah, I think Dvalishvili is going to need to. Apparently, he's improved his striking. He's going to need to continue improving his striking if he wants to make his way up in the top 10 in the bantamweights. There's a lot of really strong strikers in that division. He's going to have a tough time. Probably once he gets past like 8 or so. I would say even Dominick Cruz, who's not the cleanest striker. He's unorthodox, and I think he could give him a real challenge. So if he wants to continue his upward trajectory, he's just going to have to keep refining that striking ability. But I would say maybe a good place would be like Riviera, Cruz, or Munoz. I think would be possibly good matchups to kind of test Dvalishvili and see how well he can perform once we get him closer to like top 10, top 5 ranges.
Yeah, we got a couple of comments here before I get started.
Fire.
Alex said fire. Yeah, just what you said. Merab looked good, and then the box and the symbol, which definitely. But I'm going to go right into the breakdown of this right here. Bring it up right here, and then let me pull this down. But as you can see here, Merab connected on 178 of 306 total strikes.
Oh yeah.
Cody Stamen 73 of 163. So he had twice as much strikes output than Cody Stamen did.
Yep.
Significant strikes, he had 71 to Stamen's 48. To the head, he had 49 to 27 of Stamen. He had 16 to the body to Stamen's 20. So Stamen had more body shots.
Mm-hmm.
But then he had 6 of 9 leg kicks to just 1 of 2 of Stamen. And he had 1 submission attempt to Stamen's 0. The one thing that is crazy to look at is Merab had 5 of 11 takedowns to only 1 of 4 of Stamen's. But Stamen had controlled the ground 2 minutes and 57 seconds.
Yeah.
Whereas Merab controlled only 1 minute and 42. So Stamen's takedown was more effective than the 5 essentially Merab's. So essentially it took him down 5 times, but he didn't stay on the ground that long. Whereas Stamen was able to keep Merab down for a significant amount of time during it. But the highlight
some of that
there
is the counting. Some of that is, I think, a counting bias because, I mean, some of that, it was kind of hard to tell who was really in control. Because, I mean, it wasn't like a clear cut, like, you know, one guy's in mount, the other guy's in the bottom. It wasn't quite like that. There was a lot of these kind of like on the knees wrestling situations. You know what I mean? Especially that kind of weird thing that Merab liked to do where he would, you know, kind of get into these like almost just like on the knees and then he would snake 1 foot under and try to pull out one of Stamen's legs and just kind of hold on to that for a second, try to work up his body. But I don't know. It seemed like most of the time when they were on the ground, there wasn't really a clear winner. I assume they would have some criteria for who gets the ground control time, but this was operating in some gray area, I think, when they were counting up those minutes.
Yeah, but the big thing here is just the striking. Just Merab outclassed him with his boxing. He had evidence by the over 100 strikes more than Stamen. And I was pretty I said it in the preview. I said I thought that their wrestling was gonna kind of cancel each other out, and I thought that Merab was gonna just rely on the boxing because he was going to at least shoot for the takedowns and use that to get his boxing going. And eventually that's what happened. But I thought maybe if Stamen could have gotten early, like you said, I gave him the 3rd round. Maybe if we would have been able to get things done early, like maybe it started like round 1 or 2, he might have been able to sneak this out, even though the strike difference was just that much differently.
Yeah, it was pretty. Wow.
But if he would have like put a little bit more into the round 1 and 2, he probably could have snuck out with like a 2-1 because he essentially got because it's by each round.
Yeah.
And a lot of the input by Merab was in round 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
So if he would have been able to sneak at least one of those two, he probably could have snuck out with the shocking 2-1. But because Merab, like I said, put a lot of output into the first 2 rounds, I kind of think that he tired. I wouldn't say got tired in round 3, but I think Merab knew that he had it and kind of let off a little bit.
Yeah.
And then Stamen took advantage of that in the 3rd round. He just wasn't able to get a finish because he needed it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. But overall, an interesting fight.
Yeah, and I think this moves him up and Merab up, and he's getting close to that like top 10 if he hasn't or made it or to that top 10 already. Because Stamen was up there. Like I'll try and pull it up. Right
they
now.
were number 12 and number 13. They've got him right here.
Yeah.
They were right on top of each other.
He's on the cusp of the top 10, but I'd make a case that with how his performance was and how he's been doing, that you can make a case that maybe he moves into that top 10 spot with a couple of the fights that are coming up that are gonna make or break some fighters. That he could squeeze into that top 10 and then get a pretty good matchup in that division. Who's 8, 9, and 10 right now?
Number 8 is Munoz. Number 9 is Cruz. And number 10 is Asuncano.
Sensei.
There's no way that's how that's pronounced.
Raphael Sensei. That's
what the? There's an N in that word. What the fuck?
A Sensei.
Wait. Okay, but why is there an O at the end? That's confusing as fuck.
Because of how they pronounce it, but I could see him fighting Raphael Sensei if he doesn't have an opponent, or maybe Dominick Cruz because he hasn't even gotten anybody. Because I thought Cruz was going to fight O'Malley, but then O'Malley just announced that he has a fight in July with somebody I don't even know.
Yeah, apparently that's going to be on 264 card. It's another like below top 15, like in the 20s somewhere fighter.
Yeah,
which. I thought O'Malley put on a pretty good show. Maybe give him someone a little better than that, but because everybody seems to be calling out Cruz right now. There was a lot of Cruz call outs like between.
Well, at first they talked to Cruz, and then he said that he wouldn't mind facing him. And then O'Malley was like, "Oh, I would like to fight Cruz," but I guess nothing came out about it. So I guess Cruz wanted more time off, and then O'Malley wanted to just get going as soon as possible, which I'm not shocked because you're not going to wait for Cruz because Cruz has fought for a while, and I feel like he's going to be the guy that fights only 1 or 2 times a year at this point in his career. So, but I could see Merab he's definitely going to get a top 10 matchup now. That's as a matter of fact with the performance that he had and that he's done of late. He's a guy that could slowly move in and be interested to fight for anybody in that top 10. Not saying he's going to win. He'll just be an interesting matchup.
I was going to say, once you get to like Freddie Edgar, then it's like, can the quality of his striking really carry him that far? It's not that he's not great at it. It's just like he's a wrestler / grappling guy moving into the role of a striker, and there's just better strikers in that division. In fact, with bantamweight, there's a lot of really good strikers in that division.
Yes.
Like it's pretty stacked when it comes to the striking end of things. It's the grappling end that kind of is a little bit more lacking relative to the striking. You know, you've got a few really good grapplers like Aljamain Sterling. You got Jose Aldo is still pretty good on the ground. Dominick Cruz is a career wrestler. Jimmy Rivera, same thing. Peter Yan apparently is a very good grappler, but he like never has to use it. But it's like, you know, there's not as many really good grapplers. It's mostly a division of really strong strikers. So
and that'll be his way to usher into the top 10. Like I felt like he didn't have to use that in this matchup. He just used it, and maybe he used it as just a way to like get his striking going, and then it just worked no matter what. Like he was just able to get it down and kind of shocked him, and he was like, "Oh, okay," and then he stood up because of the amount of volume that he did. Like I didn't expect him to get like I thought he was gonna maybe get in like the 60 to 70 strike range, and he just blew that out of the park and doubled that, tripled that, and got like 176. Like it's not at the level of like a Max Holloway or Colby Covington or like a Peter Yan where they get like up to 250, 300 in like a round, but like it's still for a guy who's known for his like wrestling and taking down, for him to get 176 strikes is pretty impressive in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean he's coming a long way with the striking. Yeah. It's just the quality isn't there yet. It's coming along. Yeah. Especially when he gets excited and he starts to feel pressure, he gets way sloppy. Like he was throwing some like crazy shots. I'm like, what were you doing with that one? Like, there was no way you were gonna hit with that.
He has a lot of improvement on getting like the accuracy and then just polish it up. But it's good to see that he's able to do that many shots. It's just once you get to that top 5, they're gonna have to be more accurate. You can't just throw 300 shots and then expect to connect on like 80% of them. You're gonna have to like maybe dial it a little bit down and then try and get the accuracy up. So the more you do, the more connection you get on the shots. Yeah. But he was able to last. Like I feel like his gas tank was pretty well. Like yeah. So, which is good. Like when he has to get into those 5-round fights, if he gets to that point, because now I feel like on the pay-per-views with Nate Diaz going up against Leon Edwards with that stupid co-main event 5-round fight for no reason at all. I feel like they're going to start doing that from now on.
Maybe.
like if they're doing it for that fight, what makes you think they're not going to do it for any other co-main event? So now you're probably going to have a lot more 5-round fights now because they're going to have co-main events do it. So
I think they're probably going to be more selective. Like they'll see who's fighting, but I think the more exciting matchups they're going to want to push to have them 5 rounds, even if they're not the main card. Yeah. But we'll see, I guess. I don't know how that. The fuck, Diaz and Leon Edwards. I don't get it, but whatever. Yeah. Whatever.
But Murad looks like he's probably going to not be fighting. See, it's April now, so I'd say May now. So he probably won't be fighting at the earliest, I think, until August, maybe September, maybe that pay-per-view card. So I'll be keeping an eye on that. But it was good to see him do that, and it's good to see a guy that's trying to break the top 10 in that bantamweight division that's already kind of has, like, I wouldn't say stacked, but it has some intriguing guys in that division.
It's crowded. It's crowded for sure.
and we haven't even talked about Sean O'Malley in that. So
he hasn't really even broken in there yet, but I guess he's doing more of the slow climb. So we'll see him in the future.
Yep. But let's go to the next matchup on this card, which was a middleweight fight between Sean Strickland, who defeated Christoph Jotko by unanimous decision. What is your opinions on this fight?
I mean, this was kind of a blowout. This was just a really good showing for Strickland. This should be like a wake-up call for Jotko. So number one, he needs to tighten up his striking. If he wants to go anywhere near the top 10, much less the bottom 15, you know what I mean? Like this was his test to see how well he could do in the 15 to 10 rankings. And yeah, that's what he figured out. It's like, my striking is too wild. Better fix that. But I mean, I had this pretty much 3-0 or potentially 1-2 Strickland winning this. And it was that first round that was like maybe in contention. Just because in the first half of that first round, Jotko came out real strong and he was landing, he was connecting, he was doing well. But then the second half, Strickland started to pick up his pace. He found his rhythm, and he found Jutko's range a lot better. And he had more of those like big moments where he'd land big shots and start to wobble Jutko. And it was interesting to see kind of like the dichotomy of the two styles. You had Jutko, who is very light on his feet and moving around, versus Strickland, who's like very flat-footed, but he's constantly pressing forward. But the problem is Jutko was moving, but he was always on his back foot. So he wasn't able to press his advantages when he got them. And like I said, his striking was too wide and too wild. So once Strickland kind of figured out the range and the timing, he just kind of picked him apart with counter strikes and then just wore Jutko down through the next 2 rounds. And by the time you got to round 2 and 3, Jutko would kind of come out strong for like 30 seconds or so. And then Strickland would just be like, oh yeah, this again. And then he'd just go back to counter shotting. He was doing really good with the kicks as well. A lot of variation in like different heights on the kicks, as well as some solid leg kicks that were starting to add up towards the end of the round. But I mean, yeah, Strickland just picked him apart. No real bracket movement needed on this one, because this was Jutko's shot into the top 15, didn't make it. So where does Strickland go now? I think it'd be interesting to maybe see a matchup with Kevin Holland, who's been kind of on a losing streak. Now he's ranked number 13, actually. So they're only 2 spots apart. And I think the 2 different styles would be a good test for both of them, because Strickland would need to deal with like a more unorthodox striker who can mix it up, who has a lot of variety, and who's also pretty fucking powerful. Well, on the other hand, Kevin Holland, if he's not coming like focused and prepared, I feel like Strickland could kind of do a similar game plan to what he did to Jutko and just kind of pick him apart for his undisciplined striking. So I think it'd be a good test for both of them. And this could either be, Sean Strickland's ladder up into closer to the top 10, or like a trampoline for Holland to kind of bounce back from his slump and make his way back up in the top 10. One of the two. I don't know which one, though.
Speaking of Kevin Holland, another fight that got speaking of that fight that it got scrapped with Diego Sanchez, he was supposed to fight Donald Cerrone, and then Donald Cerrone has been in flux this whole time, and it's still on the fight card. It says Donald Cerrone versus TBA, and I'm like, it's only a few days away, and you're gonna have to eventually announce either if it's going to happen or if it's not going to happen. You can't just keep it at TBA. I got just my 2 cents saying Strickland has a really quick right hand with 0 tell on it.
Oh yeah, no, he was sinking it in really well. Yeah. He was doing really, and it was also because once he figured out the swings when Jutko was going for those power strikes, it was just a home for it. He was just like, I'm just going to place it right there, and it would land consistently. It was very good.
Yep, but it was funny that I'm mentioning Don Cerrone, because of all guys, they were talking about who's going to take the spot if they're able to fill it. And then Kevin Holland goes, I'll fight Don Cerrone. He was like, I'll take it. And this was like,
right down two weight classes.
And I'm like, what? I'm like, what? I'm like, why? I like the fact that you're down to fight anybody, but I'm like, I guess this is why it didn't go anywhere after he said it, because there was no mention of that after he said it. Like, it was just dumb.
You'd have to cut so much weight in like such a short span of time. Like, what the fuck? Okay.
I'm like, okay, but I'm like, it's a tell though that Don Cerrone's still there and it still says TBA. I'm like, okay, are they going to at least try to figure this out, or are they just going to scrap it? Because they need to do – this is about the round at the time, today and tomorrow, where they either put a clamp on it or they find somebody to step in on like 5 days notice, unless they just haven't announced it yet. But
I guess we'll see.
Fucking weird. But I see Sean Strickland here, and like you said – you got Kevin Holland there. He hasn't fought, which would be a perfect fight. Brad Tavares and Omari Akhmadov, I think, are fighting each other. And then, of course, Wyman's not going to fight anytime soon, so we're not going to do that.
Oof.
Gaslin's probably going to move down.
Mm-hmm. It looks like he already has. He was number 8. I think he switched places with Uriah Hall, actually.
Yeah. But when Shabazian beats Jack Hermanson, he's going to fall even more to 10.
Well, that sucks.
Who would you rather have a Strickland face? Would it be a guy like Gastelum, or would you have him face like Kevin Holland?
I think Kevin Holland would be a better test for, like I said, like both fighters. I feel like if he fought Gastelum, I don't know. I feel like that would go too one-sided because Gastelum has a similar approach where he's like very strong with the quick hands. He's very heavy on his punches, but when he decides to wrestle, god damn, that boy can wrestle. You know what I mean? Like I don't think Strickland could keep up with the wrestling.
But that's the thing when he decides to, because you never know when he's going to do it.
Right.
I think you made a good point. He didn't try to wrestle Ian Heinisch until Ian Heinisch tried to wrestle him first.
Yeah. Then he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm a wrestler. I forgot about that."
It's like, "Oh, I need to do this. Like I haven't done this in a while.
Let's see how it goes." I think he probably learned from the Whitaker fight. Like, all right, I need to do more of the wrestling. Like that was pretty rough. Doing all the striking, I probably need to go back to the wrestling.
Does he actually learn though? Because he finally did it in the Heinisch fight, but the 3-4 fights before that, he got his ass pummeled in and got knocked out each time. You would have thought he would have learned then.
Well, he doesn't learn lessons very quickly.
No.
It takes a while for them to sink in.
I think if I was Holland, I would take it because I wouldn't have to worry about the takedown. All.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have to worry about it. But then at the same time, if I was Holland, I'd be like, I wouldn't have to worry about the takedown, but then I wouldn't learn anything because I'm not trying to defend the takedown at the same time.
I feel like he could also be picked apart if he's not disciplined in his striking because Strickland's very tight on his guard. He's a very kind of more of an old school striker. He doesn't do like the bouncing around. He's very much like of a, not quite a Muay Thai background, but more of like a traditional kickboxing where he'll just kind of wait for you to fuck up and then he'll land his shots in the holes you create. And if Kevin Holland's not focused, he does create holes. It's just he's powerful when he connects. And when he shows up to fight, he does a lot better. So it'll just depend on which Kevin Holland shows up. And like I said, it's a test for both because that's one thing. If Kevin Holland wants to progress through the division, he's got to be the Kevin Holland that's showing up, ready to fight and focused instead of the Kevin Holland who's like telling jokes the whole fight. Kevin Holland got knocked the fuck out or he got at least lost by decision twice, first by Brunson and then by Vettori. So that's not the Kevin Holland that wins, So I think he needs to make that adjustment. And I think Strickland would be a good test for that because if he doesn't show up that way, he's going to be looking for that. That's like his bread and butter,
But don't worry because that's what we should get. But we're going to wind up getting Calvin Gastelum against Kevin Holland. That's what we're going to wind up giving because it's going to be the terror
fight. But
it's going to be the terror of Kevin Holland who hasn't fixed his takedown defense, but then Calvin Gastelum who refuses to
do any
takedown. He refuses to wrestle and stands up. So it's going to be like who's going to give in first?
Whose will breaks. God damn it.
I'm telling you, that's what's going to wind up happening. And then Sean Strickland will wind up facing somebody else.
Right. That would still be a cool fight. That would still
it would.
William Holland would still be a banger, but
I
don't know.
We'll wind up getting Sean Strickland against like the Brad Tavares, Amari Akhmadov winner, something along those lines.
I could fight Chris Weidman. Still in a cast.
They're gonna be waiting like a year or two.
With the boot.
Oh my god. But right before I move on, I'm gonna do all the stats for this fight. You had Strickland, who had 84 total strikes to only 37 of Jocko. You had 84 significant strikes to 37, so basically the same thing. 46 headshots to 17 of Jocko's, 24 body shots to 14 of Jocko's, Strickland had 14 leg kicks to only 6 of Jocko, so he mixed in the leg kicks there, and then the takedowns and submissions were not and void, except for one small takedown attempt, which was stuffed for Jocko. So it was basically just a stand-up striking game, and Strickland dominated that.
Oh yeah,
to full, and that's why he's moving on as the victor. And Jocko, who I did predict because I wanted to do like somebody I thought that no one thought was going to win, and on
You're
paper,
sucker for the underdogs. You're a sucker for the underdogs, man. Every time you're like, "Ah, Andrade can win. She can do it." That didn't work out too well. And the one time you should have gone with the underdog. You should have gone with Nemachunas, but you didn't. That would have been the one thing you could have been like, but I was right about that, though.
Who would have thought about that crazy leg kick of doom? But yeah, like I thought he had a chance because on paper, like he matched up well. He just didn't do it, man. He lost, and Strickland pulled out the victory, and now we're gonna move on to the third fight of the evening, which was crazy in itself. Like
pretty good.
I couldn't say anything of a craziness from a first round to a second and a third round, because this was a little bit of everything. That's what I'll say. But in a light heavyweight matchup, we had Ian Cutelaba, who went up against Dustin Jacoby, and they fought to a split draw. What are your opinions on this?
Now, this is like the one fight on the card where both fighters were unranked, but it was still probably one of the most interesting fights on the card. Because he had this one was pretty tough to call. Personally, I had it Jacoby 2, Cutelaba 1. But I can understand the draw because it was so fucking close. It really was. Basically you had a solid showing for both fighters, but I think they both came away from this with a good idea of what they need to improve on going forward. And the main point of contention seems to be whether or not that first round went to Cutelaba for 10-8 instead of 10-9, if it was a 10-8 round.
Yeah.
And it seems like the judges probably, or one judge probably definitely scored it that way. The other two, I think, were a little more up in the air. And that's how we got to our split draw decision. But the first round was all Cutelaba. Like Jacoby, very quickly, it was obvious he was the more technical striker. But once Cutelaba landed those big shots early in the round, he just went straight to the wrestling and just dominated the rest of the round with something crazy like 8 takedowns or something. Like he just kept throwing them, which it was like it was almost formulaic. It would be like Cutelaba throws Jacoby crawls back to the cage and he's eating shots the whole time. He manages to get to his feet for a second. And then Cutelaba just rinses and repeats. And he just did that for like 5 minutes. Jacoby eats so many shots. So I guess in then round 2, Jacoby's like, all right, we're not doing that again. That was rough. I don't want a repeat of that. So like when you saw Cutelaba try to force a wrestling situation early in the round, he couldn't maintain it. I think as Jacoby was a little bit more like on his toes about that. He's like, oh no, I know where this is going. Definitely gotta put a lot more effort into getting out of these situations before it spirals out of control.
Yeah.
But Cutelaba was gassing out. You could tell he was getting a little more tired because he wasn't as invested in making that wrestling situation happen. He wasn't like trying to force Jacoby's hand or anything. He just kind of let it go. He's like, all right, fuck it, let's go ahead and stand and bang.
He only attempted 8 in the first round, just 8.
Just 8, yeah. Which it wasn't even like all he did was take the back and that rear bear hug and just kept like chucking him. That's all he did. He just kept chucking his ass. But I mean, it was working for him though. It was working. I had Jacoby defending the second takedown. And then he started to take over after that. And then there were like there was that one time when Jacoby was like, oh no, I want to wrestle with Cutelaba. I was like, what are you doing? He did it again in the third round. Even the announcers are like, bro, what are you doing? Let it go. Go back to the striking thing. That's when you're winning.
at the end, and they're like, "No, stop!" And then he wound up getting up and then connected on a few.
Yeah, like right there, it was like the last 30 seconds. They were like, "What is he doing?" But he did that a couple of times, which was weird. In the third round, he had a solid stand up, and both of them did really. They were standing and banging for like 2 solid minutes, just back and forth, back and forth. But then over time, Jacoby started to kind of take over, and I think he at the end, setting aside that weird second where he wanted to wrestle, he cleaned up well, and I think he took that round. That's why I had him 2-1. But if you score it with Cutelaba taking a 10-8, then it's still 28-28. So I can see the draw. I can see how that happened. But
we had just my 2 cents chiming in. I had the same scores, Miles, 29-28 Jacoby.
Mm-hmm.
I scored round 1 at 10-9 for Ian. Or Iron, whatever you want to say, approaching 10-8, but the damage wasn't quite there for me.
Yeah.
Here's the question I have for you. Like, would you still score at 10-8? Like, I know, like you guys were saying, the damage wasn't there, but he did take him down 8 times. Like, like, do you not score it even though he had 8 takedowns, which is a lot? Or do you just keep it at 10-9? Because
the 10-9 dichotomy is so nebulous. Like, what is a 10-8? Can you quantify that specifically? And like, at what point in the round do we go, okay, now this is a 10-8, which before it was a 10-9? That divide is so, it's undefined. Like, who fucking knows? It's up to the judges entirely. So some people say it's damage. I don't disagree with that. Damage is a good way to look at it. But again, like some people, they just have like weaker skin around the face, and like one little cut can just bleed a lot, and it looks like it's a lot of damage, but it's really not. So like in the moment of the fight, damage can sometimes be hard to gauge. If you're just going on like there's sometimes where it's obvious, like the JSP Jimi Hendrix or Johnny Hendrix fight where he was all fucked up. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, you can tell who came out on top in that exchange. But in this fight, I actually have
a pretty good story about that one too.
Yeah, well, I mean that's what I don't know. 10-8 is such a weird, nebulous threshold to cross. I feel like for some people it crossed it because it was like, Jacoby couldn't do anything, right? Like he just was consistently out of options. He was just dominated because as soon as he'd crawl back to the cage, he was literally crawling. Like he was getting beat while he was crawling. It's hard to do worse than that. So that might be another basis is like, well, how much was the other guy able to fight back? Was it just like a completely one-sided exchange, or does the other guy have some ability to fend off these attacks? And if you're looking at it from that one, I could kind of see that where like Jacoby really didn't have too much of a defense during those wrestling exchanges. He had almost nothing. Yeah. So, I mean, you could maybe do it by that threshold. You could do it from like a skill threshold, which I don't think you would meet it on that criteria, because while Cutelaba was controlling him with wrestling, it wasn't like the cleanest, most beautiful wrestling anybody's ever seen. It was very much like junkyard. I'm just gonna take the back and like trip you up on the legs and just kind of fall with you wrestling, you know? Like they were takedowns, but they were pretty like low threshold, low technical skill takedowns. So I don't know. I mean, I didn't see particularly anything that would make me think 10-8 specifically, but again, 10-8 is just sort of, it's so up in the air. I don't know. You could maybe make a case for the fact that Jacoby couldn't fight back. That's the criteria, I would say, if you were going to score that round of 10-8, that's what it would be based on, more so than anything else. But
I feel like the dominant first round, even if you scored 10-9, 10-8, wound up being his undoing in this matchup, because I think it was probably around maybe 2 minutes into round 2. You started to see like the turning of the tide. You started seeing Jacoby start going, because he wasn't tired. He was taking all those takedowns, but he wasn't really exerting any crazy energy into fighting them. It was he just kept on getting down. He got back up, like you said.
Well, he stuffed a lot of them. There's a few, that one where like Cutelaba was trying to get him and he just straight up sprawled, but he ended like on top of him. Like there was some really good takedowns.
Well, if you look at it right here, he had 19 takedown attempts, which is crazy. He did get 9, but he only he shot in for like 19, which is just astronomical for even a guy like that does it a lot. Even in the last matchup, I thought was by Merab. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a lot, but he didn't come close to as many as Kudalaba. We got 2 cents. There's been so many 10-8s that I thought were kind of weak, but seen some fights that should have been 10-8 rounds that weren't scored that way. It's like it's like a gray area with them where like what makes you make this a 10-8, but then this a 10-9. Right. Like there's no clear cut thing. I think
it's give criteria. Like there's not even like a judges accepted, like if it's a 10-8, it has to have these things at least, that doesn't even exist. So.
Exactly. And it's because they still use the boxing format with the judging.
That. Really need to stop doing that.
One championship doesn't do that, and if this was a fight in one championship, Kudalaba would have got the victory because of the round one. Because they go with the fight as a whole, not by round.
Oh, interesting. So even if you are ahead in 2 rounds, if the overall numbers don't add up, you still lose. Interesting.
Yeah, they do it differently there, which is crazy. They just had something like that with a women's fight last week on one on TNT 4 where that happened, and then the Russian was pissed off about it, but then it's like you could have finished her off, but you didn't. You let her get back into it, and that's how you lost. So
I mean, I think there needs to be like definitely a hybrid approach to judging, where like you've got a criteria of scoring for both grappling and for striking, because then when you're using like the boxing criteria like they're using here, it doesn't cover some of these gray areas of like, well, like what is good wrestling versus not as good wrestling, but like you still get a lot of takedowns, right? Like the Gastelum Heinisch fight versus this fight. Or at least the first round of this fight, Kudalaba had a lot of takedowns, but they were not nearly as clean or as technical as Gastelum's take. Nowhere even fucking close. But on paper, they're scored the same. But like, they're not the same though. There's a quality difference that in the scoring, if you had a scoring more geared towards like wrestling, that would be accounted for. But because that doesn't really compute that way, there's too much of there's just too much gray area there that there's too much, I guess, value lost when you try to just compare the performance that you saw from Gastelum in any given round of the Heinisch fight versus the performance of Kudalaba in the first round and be like, oh, those on paper would look the same. That's some bullshit,
Yeah, but we got the stats right here. You had Kudalaba, who had 111 total strikes to Jacoby's 100. 71 significant strikes for Kudalaba to 84 of Jacoby. Kudalaba had 62 headshots to 67 of Jacoby's. 5 of 9 body to 8 of 9 body for Jacoby. Then 4 of 4 leg kicks for Kudalaba to 8 of 9 for Jacoby. And then, of course, the 9 takedowns to 19 to 1 of 3. 4 minutes and 27 control, and then 1 minute and 32 for Jacoby with his 1 takedown. When you look at this first, you just feel like, wow, like this is so like all Kudalaba's stats are basically a little bit more than Jacoby. How does Jacoby win? And then you look into it and you watch it, and you're like, okay, 8 of those 9 takedowns on the first round, probably half of his striking is in the first round as well, because then once he got to round 2, his gas tank went down.
He went way the fuck down.
And then Jacoby went up and probably had like a 3-1 strikes advantage round 2 and 3 against Kudalaba. Was able to get his total strikes up to mirror Kudalaba's in the long run. And then that's how he got 2 and 3. He put on more. Like once you hit 1, it was like, okay, this is a new matchup. He had round 1, and then Jacoby just slowly outstruck him in rounds 2 and 3, and then had that stupid takedown at round 3.
I don't know why he did that.
like he was piecing them up, and I'm like, come on, go for the finish, Yeah, but instead he took him down with like 15 seconds left. I'm like, no, get him back up.
I think that was a pride takedown. I think that was a pride takedown. He's like, he took me down 8 times. I took him down once, so it wasn't totally embarrassed. I think that was a pride takedown, like 100%.
The one question that I have though is like that one judge gave it 29-28 Cutelaba, and I'm like,
what the fuck was that? What round did he possibly give Cutelaba outside of the first? I'm like, what?
I'm like, he had the first. That's no dispute. We know that for a fact. Like whether it's 10-9, 10-8, that's a dispute in itself. But he had that like clearly. But what part of round? It had to be 2. What part of round 2 did you see that you gave it to Cutelaba over Jacoby? Because it was like the first one was like 29-28 Jacoby, then his was 29-28 Cutelaba. I was like, oh shit. I was like, what's this third judge gonna do? And then they're like, oh. And then I'm thinking in my head, like, if this judge goes in and scored the first round 10-8, this is gonna be a draw now. Yeah. And that's what it was. They're like, okay, 29-29 or 20-20, whatever it was, a majority draw, and I'm like, no way, they definitely did that right now.
Fucking weird, man. I don't know. The only time I could see you could maybe make a case for like a second round for Cutelaba, it'd have to be in the third when they were just standing and banging, because there were a couple of times where Jacoby got hit pretty hard, but like, there's no way he got the second round. He only was really standing and training with Jacoby for like a minute and a half or so of the third before Jacoby started taking over. So even then, that's a pretty flimsy way to view the third round. And even then, Jacoby still got a takedown and he didn't. So how does that work? where Cutelaba still gets the third? How does that work? But okay, I don't know.
You just look at the stats here. You just look at the stats here, and it's like, yeah, he has more strikes, but half of them, like I said, were in the first round with him taken down at will and then just hitting him with strikes. So only half of his strikes were in round 2 and 3 after that. And then Jacoby outstruck him in those. So it's like, and then he only had one more takedown after that. So it's like, you look at this and it's like Jacoby had rounds 2 and 3. There's no way he had any chance. So for it to be a draw, it was like just crazy in itself. It was like,
it was pretty nuts,
even if you had a draw on this one, which was okay, scored a draw if you want, but for that one judge to give it to Cutelaba, it is just, he's just nuts in himself.
Was he watching? What the fuck? Was he like fiddling on his phone for half of the third or half of the second, and then he looked up and he was like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. And then he kind of paid attention for the first part of the third and then went back to his phone. And then he was like, oh, yeah, I saw Jacoby do good in the second, but then I saw Cutelaba do real good in the third.
You know what happened? He was probably playing solitaire, and then he's like, fuck, I missed the fight. Let me go look at Fight Center right now and look at the stats. And he's looking at this. He's like, oh, this is how it was? Okay, I'm going to go with that Cutelaba.
Damn Angry Birds, man. It's fucking up UFC judging.
I know, like gotta hit those birds.
Yeah.
Not getting everything right.
I think the lesson that they both should learn is that Jacoby needs to work on his grappling, his wrestling, for sure. And Cutelaba needs to work on that gas tank. Because after that first round, he just takes a fucking nosedive. So to that end, I think 2 good matchups that I think would kind of test both fighters on both points. One would be give Jacoby Paul Craig, who's a very good grappler. If he's not good about his takedown defense and stuff, then Paul Craig is just going to eat him alive. And give Cutelaba Jimmy Crute, because I feel like Jimmy Crute could handle him in the first round. And if Cutelaba doesn't work on building that gas tank for the other 2 rounds, Crute's just going to pick him apart just like Jacoby did. So I think that would be a good place to go for both of those fighters to kind of test themselves and move them forward and gain more experience.
You don't think they try to run this back?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, we'll see. That's the thing. It was an interesting fight, but I feel like if they put it like on a pay-per-view event, they would be like maybe in the prelims, because it'd be like, well, these are 2 unranked fighters, Kudalaba's popular. Jacoby's, he's got a reputation, but it's like there are more interesting matchups. So maybe they'll run it back again.
Yeah.
It might be in like a prelim card, but I feel like they might want to take these fighters and put them on maybe more attractive looking matchups that they could maybe put on like a pay-per-view main card or even just a fight night main card. But who knows?
Like I'm looking at it right now, and then I see Paul Craig is facing Jamal Hill, I believe, next week.
Oh, interesting.
On the pay-per-view. So, which is the 14 versus 15 matchup. So one of them is going to move up. Of course, Jimmy Crute just lost. I mean, it's
like recovery time too with that ankle.
Yeah, I could see one of them facing Misha Serkinov. He's coming off a loss to Ryan Spann. Because
that's right. Yeah.
So Ryan Spann's at the 11 spot. Serkinov's at the 12. Crute's going to need to recover. Craig and Hill are facing each other, so you could put him against. You could put one of them against Serkinov, likely Kudalaba. Even though I would do Jacoby because Kudalaba did well in the first round, but he needs to prove himself with a win. Like he's coming off of several losses.
Yeah, that's right.
Whereas Jacoby came back in and has. He had one or two wins and then the tie. Mm-hmm. So in the long run, Jacoby's going to be a guy between him and Kudalaba, unless Kudalaba can finally pick up a win to get off this losing streak. So I could see
he's in a tough division too. He's in the light heavyweights. There's a lot of solid fighters all the way down to I'd say even the 11 spot. There's some solid guys on the card or in that division. So I mean, he's got work cut out for him.
But I could see a Jacoby against the Serkinov or maybe wait and face the winner of Craig and Hill. Which would be a good matchup to test how he fits in that. Because I don't think there's a guy like that, like Kudalaba, that's going to try and take him down 20 times.
Well, Paul Craig's pretty comfortable on the ground. I think he would want to take that fight to the ground if he could. So that's why I think that would be an interesting matchup because Jacoby would want that all on his feet, while Paul Craig would want that all on the ground. So it's like, well, whose interest can win out there,
Yeah, but let me move on to the co-main event of the evening, which was a bantamweight matchup between Giga Chikaski, who I call Street Fighter, who defeated Cub Swanson by liver kick. I put that in there. I put liver kick because that's basically how all you have to do is look at this liver kick because that's what he did. What was your takes from this fight?
This was a solid showing for an up-and-comer, Chikadze, I think is how you say that, Chikadze. He pretty much dominated that entire first round right up until he won by knockout via kick to the false rib / liver area. It wasn't cleanly the liver. It was I thought it was a little higher, but either way, it was a solid kick. I think this was a good showing for him. The Giga kick, yeah.
Yeah, they call it the Giga kick.
The Giga kick, I heard that. But no, I think this was definitely a good matchup to show that Chikadze deserves more. You know what I mean? I think he fought Rob Swanson, which was the bottom of that division, wasn't it? He was the number 15 spot. Yeah. And Chikadze was only 14 at the time. So we'll see how they move relatively. I don't think there's going to be too much movement probably since, Chikadze won and he was ahead anyway. But I think he's done the thing where okay, I fought down. Now let me fight up. Let me fight someone who's higher up in the ranks. Give me an opportunity to climb. And I think it might be a time for, Cub Swanson to think, maybe he's starting to age out. He's 37. So he's getting to that retirement age, sort of right around 40 where fighters are all right, it might be time to start thinking about what I'm going to do after this,
He's been there forever from when the bantamweight division started in the UFC. He was that guy who you would consider the gatekeeper at that time, where it was Cub Swanson, it's either you're breaking into that top 5 or he's going to beat you, and then you're not going to wind up in that top 5. He was that guy. I remember he had a title fight 8 years ago. I feel that's how long it's been.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think he's had a decent career. 27-12 is a good record. It's not terrible. I think it just might be his time to exit the stage. Maybe fight in the under bottom 15, between 15s and 20s for a while, pick up a little more cash, but he's probably looking at retirement. Chikadze, on the other hand, I think he's an up and comer. He's definitely got a lot of skill. He could be a big problem in this division. I didn't see anything really reminiscent of any grappling ability, but his kickboxing is definitely there. His power striking is definitely there. And I mean, he's in a division where there's a lot of really solid strikers, but again, not as many really well-rounded grapplers. So I think he could go a long way with that. Now, as far as where he would go next, he did call out Max Holloway. And my question was does he deserve that shot yet? I mean, not saying that he's not talented, but Max Holloway is the number one contender in the division. Max Holloway's still 29, still at this physical peak. The dude's been a title contender, and didn't he take the belt a couple of times? The guy's a really well-established fighter in the division.
Is that the only one to call Holloway out the past 2 days?
Yeah, but I mean, he's only number 14. He's coming off of a win, but he's still new. So I don't think he deserves the shot straight at number one contender yet. He's
actually not even in the top 10 at 15 yet.
I've got him here at number 14.
14 is Kyler Phillips, and 15 is Marlon Vera.
They must have moved it on the UFC website, because that's where I'm looking at the rankings. They've got him number 14, Cub Swanson 15.
Yeah, neither of them are on the top 15 of the bantamweight.
Oh, weird. I don't wonder why they put it that way. That's all, because they show a lot of movement. It looks like someone maybe dropped off, because there's a ton of movement here on the UFC rankings. Literally everybody from 13 to 3 moved up. Hold on. Number 3 to number 8, they all moved up 1 spot. Number 9 to number 13 all moved up 2 spots. So somebody dropped off. And I guess that moved Chikadze and Swanson up a couple of spots too. So interesting. But
that's because it's featherweight.
Yeah.
Why is it? Oh, that's why. But that's why, because on the thing on ESPN, it has it listed as bantamweight.
Oh.
which I'm like, why is it? I even thought about that yesterday. I'm like, why does it have it listed as bantamweight? Because I basically took it for what they had put in on here, and then it said bantamweight. And yesterday, because I prepped this yesterday, and now our son on the thing, it has the back as featherweight. And I'm like, what?
I didn't notice you put bantamweight on there. I wasn't paying enough attention, but yeah, that would explain a lot.
I just copied it down how they had it on the website at the time.
Interesting.
So it's featherweight, which makes it even better. Yeah. So they're 15 and then 14, which is surprising that they weren't ranked, and now they're ranked now.
Yeah.
But when I look at this, I look at Giga, and I'm like, you got Edson Barbosa at number 12, who is basically has a similar background, and then even you have Jose Aldo, who's in bantamweight. But when I think of this guy, I think of Jose Aldo because of the leg kicks. If you think of old school Jose Aldo, that's what he's known for, was kicking the legs. Mm-hmm. And with his legs, and they're just ferocious, and how fast he did it. Yeah, him and Edson Barbosa were able to beat guys without even having to knock them out. They would just take so much damage that they'd medically be unfit to continue because they couldn't stand on their feet. And then this guy does the crazy thing with him is how fast he gets with the velocity of his kicks.
I was going to say he's reminiscent of he's got similar skill sets to Adesanya, but they're stylistically different. He's fast. He can do the counter striking really well. He's good at placing shots when he needs to. They just stylistically approach fighting a little bit. It looks different when you watch it. But I mean, I don't know how you do against Max Holloway, because Max Holloway is really good. And one of the things Max Holloway has, besides his skills, is the ability to
volume.
Well, it's his volume, but he also thinks as the fight progresses, so he can evolve his strategy as he needs to. He doesn't go in with one strategy, and then when it's not working, he just goes, well, I'll just do it harder. No, he like actually adapts and like molds his strategy to the situation with like an overall strategy is like, well, this is the general approach, but I'm going to make adjustments as the fight goes on. So I don't know. I think Chikadze is still kind of a low rank guy. He's trying to make a lot of noise.
He's moving up.
Build that reputation to move up faster. I don't think he gets a shot at Holloway yet. Personally, the most I would give him would be Cater, Allen, or Korean Zombie, because I think those would be interesting fights. But yeah, Ige, Bryce, those would be good too.
But Ige is fighting Korean Zombie, and I think Bryce is fighting somebody. So Sadiq is available. I know that. But we won't have to worry about Giga calling out Max Holloway, because yesterday Max Holloway got called out by Justin Gaethje.
What? What?
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
Is he gonna go cut down? Like, what's happening there?
Well, from what I read, Justin Gaethje is like, hey, it looks like they don't want to book me anytime soon because everybody else in the division is getting booked, and Max Holloway isn't booked. You know what? Let's have a good fight.
Did he just want a sparring match? Like, what the fuck?
Hey, it'd be a good fight.
I mean, it would be.
I'd be down to watch
it. How is that going to work?
maybe Max Holloway moves up, because Max Holloway was ready to move up when he went to fight Khabib before that. When he took that on short notice, maybe he moves up. I don't know, but I would see it. I'd be intrigued to see it.
It'd be a good fight. I think the mechanics are a little. It's not as weird as Kevin Holland like wanting to fight in the lightweight division. That's weirder, but this is still a little odd.
Giga is too big of a step down for Max, but I like the call out. I think he just did it just for the notoriety. Like, oh, I called out Max Holloway, breaking into that top 15. Maybe it'll help me out with another fight. I look at that and I'm like, who could he face? Like, there's guys like I agree with those. Like, I know Burgos is fighting. He's 9. He's fighting this week. Mm-hmm. I know Allen and Sadiq just far. Emmett's too far up. Like, once you get to that, like Emmett at 6, that's too far up right now for him. Yeah.
I would say maybe Allen would be a good challenge, because I feel like Allen also has the ground stuff. I think once he gets past the top 10, he's going to start coming up against fighters, not many of them, but there's a few who have decent enough ground backgrounds where they could put him on the ground. And it seems like he may not have any answers down there. And I feel like Arnold Allen might be one of those guys who, even if I think Giga could probably outstrike him, but I think if it goes to the ground, now Giga's going to have to problem solve for a skill set he doesn't necessarily have. You know what I mean? And someone who's more experienced, who has more of a background for it, like Arnold Allen, even though he's not like the greatest grappler, he could definitely put Giga in some very challenging positions. So, I mean, that might be okay.
I think from a booking standpoint, they might go for Bryce Mitchell at 11, considering he hasn't fought since October. Because I know Barbosa I think is also fighting this week. No, next week's pay-per-view as well. Mm-hmm. So unless you got this Mavsar Elov guy,
I don't know who that is.
unless he's fighting somebody who isn't booked, you can put against him. But then I would think that the most logical would be Bryce Mitchell, who is on the rise as well, because Sadiq is coming off a loss. I think Sadiq will want to face somebody else than Giga. I think Giga would be better off fighting Bryce Mitchell, knowing that he's coming off a win, because then if he were able to win that, he'd jump into that top 10.
Sure, I could see that.
And then everything will work out after that with a bunch of matchups, and then he can, if he wins that, he can then put his eyes on, like you said, like an Arnold Allen or like a Dan Ige, because at that time he'll likely have fought, or like a Josh Emmett, who's come back from injury after that great fight with the Burgos last year. So, like, I think him versus Bryce Mitchell would be a good booking matchup.
I mean, we can make it happen.
Yeah,
we can make it happen.
So, but I won't go too much into the stats because the fight didn't last.
I mean, you need to.
No. All you need to know is all you need to know is one round, Giga kick, win. That's all you need to know. But we'll move on to the main event of the evening in just about a sec, which was crazy. That's all I'm gonna say. We got Just My 2 Cents says Masar with Ragdoll Giga. Evolove is another prospect, though. They might not even make that. They probably go for like a guy like Bryce Mitchell, who's won like 4 or 5 in a row, but isn't even booked yet. So since he hasn't fought, so I think with how Giga was able to get out of this with essentially no damage, like a few shots, and that's it. Yeah. You can book that and then see Giga can keep moving up. Like you got all these prospects coming up. Eventually, one of them is going to have to fight each other. Like there's going to have to be a matchup between them, but not yet.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's kind of like picking your carrots before they've matured. So that kind of sucks. Because one of them has to lose.
Yep. So but let's move on to the main event of the evening, which was a light heavyweight matchup, which saw Jiri Prochazka defeat Dominick Reyes by second round KO. What are your thoughts of this?
Yeah, this was a crazy performance. Now, if Prochazka can work on keeping his hands up, then he's going to be a real problem for whoever wins Jovic Teixeira. I had this, it doesn't even really matter. It was the first round, like who was ahead. That first round was pretty close, but I think Prochazka put on a show that nobody was expecting against a fighter like Reyes. And the thing is, Reyes wasn't like completely outclassed. He was still returning fire. It's just he wasn't doing any damage to Prochazka. Like Prochazka seemed fine, but it wasn't like he wasn't eating really heavy shots, Like Reyes came out really solid at the beginning of the first, and he got wobbled. But he still managed to get the takedown. So some good strategy, some good thinking there. Like, all right, the hands aren't working, but let me put him on the ground. But Prochazka got back to his feet by like a really weird, like rolling escape out of that. That was very interesting. And it was mostly because Reyes slipped up a bit when he was transitioning from the half guard to get to the mount. But after that, Prochazka just turned up the volume and he landed lots of heavy shots on Reyes throughout the rest of that round. Reyes was firing back with those counter punches, but like I said, he wasn't doing a terribly great deal amount of damage. It seemed like Prochazka was just eating them. I mean, like, all right, that's fine. It just kept going. And then, of course, the fight ended in the second round, and it has a similar format. You got Reyes coming out strong at the beginning, and then Prochazka kind of took over when he turns up the volume. There was a couple of crazy moments there. The first one was when Reyes hurt Prochazka, and then they got like taken down immediately. That was pretty cool. That big cross that just kind of wobbled him for a second. That was awesome. And then when they went to the ground, it kind of looked like Prochazka wasn't as comfortable on the ground. Like he knew what to do, but it was like it's almost like when you take a foreign language class in college and you have enough language proficiency to kind of like carry a rudimentary conversation, but then you get sent to the native country of that language, right? Yeah. Like if you're learning Chinese and you're like Chinese 3 and you can have simple conversations and you get dropped in China, try to talk to people. He seemed kind of like that, It's like he knew what wrestling was. He kind of had a decent idea of how to do it, but when push came to shove, he was like kind of flying by the seat of his pants, it looked like, not really his arena. And then there was that one crazy moment where where Reyes, it looked like Reyes knocked out Prochazka with that up kick. Like it looked like he was out for a second because he sort of fell over on top of Reyes, but then he was fine. So I guess it wasn't an out. I guess he was just dazed for a second, but that was crazy. I was like, is that going to be an ending of the fight via up kick? Like, holy shit. That's almost as crazy as what actually happened. Because once Reyes got back to his feet, that's when Prochazka landed that elbow combo. With that spinning elbow, he led with 2 elbows concurrent, and then after that second elbow that missed, he came around with that spinning elbow and just turned out Reyes' lights. He was unconscious before he hit the ground, which was fucking crazy. But I think this is because we don't know a whole lot about Prochazka before this. He had like one fight. Yeah. He showed a lot of really good striking for sure. Again, with the hands kind of below the waistline, very low, allows him to throw shots at kind of awkward angles, and he's powerful. But it's like, I wonder how he does against someone who has more guard discipline and who has a chin like he does. I think that was one of the things is Reyes didn't seem to have the same kind of chin he had in the Jones fight. You know, like when he fought John Jones, he was very polished. He was very technical, but he could take a lot of shots. He took a ton of punishment. But I think after that, I think maybe it took something out of him to where now his chin isn't as strong as it used to be. Like the damage just adds up too quickly. Same thing in the Jovic fight. We were expecting a lot more impact endurance from him, but Jovic just overwhelmed him with that power differential. And that's exactly what happened here yet again. So it's like, what happens for Reyes next? He's always the bridesmaid, but never the bride. You know, he's had all these title shots. He's had all these opportunities, but every time he comes up against someone who's this big power differential.
It's crazy to think like he did so well against Jones. Is that just because Jones doesn't have the power and he winds up winning by decision because of what he like puts in? Like he could go 5 rounds and just outlast his opponent, or like has the division grown to where they were able to groom guys that it just so happens that John Jones is leaving the division when they're coming up, like because like Jovic, Rakic, now Prochazka, like this is crazy. Like you said, this was only his second fight in the UFC, but he's ranked number 5 now, or at the moment. He's likely going to move up to like probably 3 now.
Yeah, I think they're probably going to flip flop him.
Yeah, but it's crazy to think that he fought once in the UFC and then he was placed at 5. So obviously they have a lot of back in Jiri if they automatically are putting him at that 5 spot.
The way I heard it is that he actually got offered a contract to go into the UFC years ago, but he turned it down because he wanted more experience in the professional leagues and wherever the fuck he's from. And so he initially turned it down. So they've had their eye on the Prochazka guy for a while. And so when he finally took the contract, they wanted to like fast track him. And I think that's why he got, who's the matchup that he knocked out? It was,
he beat 8-ranked. Eight-ranked Vulcan Oldesmere.
Yeah, that's so like just getting a number 8 rank matchup for your debut is kind of unheard of. But I think it's because they've had their eye on this guy for a while. And so once he beat Oldesmere, whatever the fuck his name is, they moved him up pretty quick. So I think they see this guy as like a real contender in this division, which I think he is. To be fair.
Yeah. And then it looks like he made the case that he should get the next title shot, but then one thing led to another, and then Rakic said, let's go.
Interesting.
Along that side. So I feel like we're going to get a Jiri Prochazka versus Alexander Rakic matchup, and maybe the winner is the number 1 contender.
Well, they were saying at the end of that fight that Dana White specifically said whoever won the Reyes-Prochazka matchup gets a shot at the winner of Jovic Teixeira. So
my thing though,
I don't know what's just going to happen, but I really want to see Prochazka Jovic. I want to see that fucking fight so bad.
Yeah, but I look at that, but I'm like, how can you do that when Rakic is ranked number 2?
Yeah,
he's not
I think it's because they're really investing in this Prochazka guy because of how much he's done in the other professional league he's fought in. So I think for like the money, especially now that Prochazka has made a statement by knocking the shit out of Reyes, I think, Dana White might be seeing money signs. He might be like, all right, fuck Rakic. Let's get this guy in there. Like, because apparently that's what he said. He said, like, definitively, whoever wins the Reyes Prochazka fight gets a shot at the winner of whoever takes the title between Jovic and Teixeira. So I mean,
but that's not going to happen to September though. So
it's when you
look at that, you could essentially, because I think nothing else is booked on that September card in general. You could, in theory, put Rakic versus Jiri on that card as like the 3rd fight on the card or something like that. Or maybe even put it on before or after that pay-per-view and have it be like a headliner for like a fight night or something like that. Or like the pay-per-view after and make it like the co-main event and have it 5 rounds.
Right.
And have the winner be the true.
They'd make money on it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Have that, and then the winner becomes the next number one contender, because then you'd have 2 versus 3. It'd be a true, okay, Teixeira's 1, he's getting a shot at the belt, but then you have Rakic who's 2, and then Jiri who's 3. 2 contrasting styles that would mesh pretty well in the octagon, because they're both 2 young guys.
Yeah.
I have a feeling they're going to try and go against that, because they're both young guys, and maybe they want to be like, okay, Jiri, you get the shot, and then we'll let Rakic get the shot afterwards. Or maybe Rakic would have to fight. Like, he already fought Santos, so he's not going to fight Santos again. So what are you going to do? Rakic against Anthony Smith, which has already happened.
Right.
And then but at this time, you got Magomed Ankalaev, who is at 7, who's making his claim for the top 5 in himself.
Ankalaev. Yeah, Ankalaev is a badass, man. I like him. I think maybe personally give Ankalaev a shot at Reyes, because now they're probably going to flip-flop places, which would put Reyes at 5. Give Ankalaev a shot at Reyes so he could take that 5 spot.
Yes.
And, I think that would be a really good way to kind of salvage that. And then let the Raychick and Prochazka fight happen if he already wants to do that. Because, Dana White just as much said he gets a shot at the title. So it's like, well, what does he do in the interim? If he feels like he wants to train, let him train. If he feels like he wants to take up Rakic on this in maybe a fight night card or something, let him do that, But, it looks like Yuri's going to get a shot. I'm hoping at Jovic, because that's going to be a fucking awesome banger fight. And this is the thing. Jovic has the wrestling background to be a real problem for Jiri.
Power.
Yeah, not only that, it's like he's got the power, but he's got a little bit more, which isn't by much, but he's got a little bit more guard discipline. He's got the wrestling background, which maybe Jiri has, maybe he doesn't. We really haven't seen much out of him, but when you did see him wrestle, he didn't look too confident with it. So between the 2 of them, I would say that Jovic probably is the stronger wrestler. So this would just turn into like a firefight with Jovic eventually throwing in some wrestling probably. But I don't know. I feel like the Teixeira versus Jiri fight wouldn't be as exciting. I feel like Jiri would dominate Teixeira with his striking. That's just me, though. I don't know.
So here's the one question before I get to a couple of 2 cents comments. What do you do with Rakic?
I don't know. He's just kind of floating there for a while. Maybe give him the loser of Jovic Teixeira.
Okay.
Because
like I said, he's beat Santos. Which was like, he didn't beat him in great fashion. It was like a boring matchup. Yeah, but then he beat Anthony Smith. Ankalaev is already he's moving on up. I don't think he's beaten Oldesmere or Krylov, and I think he's beat Johnny Walker. I think he beat. So it's like you put yourself in this position where you've got several fighters in the light heavyweight division that are on the fast track already, which you didn't expect to happen. Because like a year ago, this was like, oh, John Jones, and no one cares about the rest. But now John Jones is left, and you got these 3 hot prospects right now, and Ankalaev, Rakic, and Jiri, that have just come out of nowhere and have put claim to that into that top 5.
Right.
And then of course Jovic has shined as well, win the title, but it's making the light heavyweight division look good again, where it's not like, and it's like, it makes you think like John Jones definitely picked a good time to lead and flee into the heavyweight division.
Left.
Yes. Yeah. I had no challengers left yet. He got 3 guys that are moving in here. Let me go to the heavyweight division now and go up against Ngannou at some point in the next 2 years.
We'll see when that happens.
But but we got him chiming in. Jiri is the next title shot. Rakic put on less impressive performances, has turned down fights unlike Prochazka. What fight did he turn down? Because I know he's fought the last couple. He's fought Anthony Smith and then, like I said, Thiago Santos. So he's fought top 5 fights and won them at the time. but it's just that the Santos one wasn't as good.
I mean, I still think give him, to share the loser of Teixeira Jovic, which will probably be Teixeira, but
Jiri will knock out Jan and then get starched by my dude Ankalaev. Ankalaev would kill Dom.
Yeah, I think it would.
Clover would get chinned by Jan. That's all the hot takes I have for now, boys. I love your hot takes. John Jones is stupid like a fox.
He had one more.
He turned down the Jiri fight. Okay.
I didn't know he turned down Jiri. Interesting. Which, I mean, I don't know how he would do against a guy like Jiri. He's so unorthodox. Even though Ratchik is or Raychik, I don't know how the fuck you say that.
Rackage.
Racket. That's not how that's spelled. What the fuck? Anyway, he's a good kickboxer, but I feel like he couldn't stand up to like when he connects with Jiri, and Yuri's got such a chin on him. He could be more technical, landing more shots, but the damage counters would be vastly different shot for shot. So, I mean, I think he would have.
I think Rakic would use his wrestling.
He'd have to. But the question is, can he get close enough? Because wrestling is a double-edged sword. And we just saw, like, Jiri just does shit. Like, he's just like, they were even asking, like, hey, what about that spinning elbow? What were you thinking? He's like, I don't know. I just threw one. So I was like, all right, let's try the other one. Like, he was just throwing stuff. And that kind of makes him a little bit dangerous if you're trying to approach it as a wrestler. Because you don't know what he's thinking. He's going to be like, all right, fuck it. I don't know. Spinning knee jump. I don't fucking care. Let's just try shit. Like, you know what I think?
You know what I think it is? It's the power of the ponytail.
It's supposed to be like a top knot, I think. It's like a samurai thing.
Somebody made the comparison of that to Goro from Mortal Kombat. how it was. It's like it's exactly like the same thing, like on top. And I'm like, no wonder he has all that power. He's letting out his inner Guru.
He did say something about like he likes to keep his hands low because it charges his fire chakra or some shit. I heard about that, so I was like, maybe get your hands up. I think your fire chakra's fine. Just guard your face more. Oh god.
Yeah, but it's crazy looking at the stats, and it's like this fight only lasted like a round and a half. Yet Jiri had 78 strikes, and then Reyes had 68, and of course the significant strikes mirror that. Reyes had 39 headshots to Jiri's 61. Crazy double difference. Body shots, Reyes had 21 to 16 of Jiri. 3 leg kicks for Reyes, which I felt were effective in his fight for Reyes. I thought his leg kicks were doing good damage in the beginning, and then he just abandoned them.
Yeah, I don't know why he stopped. That was working.
And then control, they both had 1 takedown, and then 29 seconds to a minute 35. And then Reyes had that submission attempt. I think it was at the end of the round, wasn't it?
He was. It was in the first. He tried to sink in a guillotine, but the problem was he had the arm in. So like if you have the arm in on a guillotine, it's very hard to finish because all you really got to do is just put your arm down. It creates space. So the minute you start resisting against the grip with your arm, it just opens up your neck and you really don't have it. So at the best you can do is hope for like a neck crank, but you got to crank the shit out of it. Like you got to drop the armpit, pull in tight, lift with the hips, with everything you've got to get that neck crank to actually happen and get them to tap out of pain more than like anything else.
But I just felt like Reyes went away from his game plan, which was working, and then he just like when you look at it, it was like he was having success with the body, he was having success with the leg kicks, and they were getting to Jiri, but then Jiri was hitting him in the head, and I felt like Dominick Reyes was like, oh, he's getting me with the head, I'm gonna have to start doing the same thing. I'm going to have to fight fire with fire. I'm going to have to go against the head. If he would have just kept on going with the body and the leg kicks, I felt like he would have got to Jiri. Jiri would have started slowing down because he would have had to start defending those shots instead of just taking them because they were getting to him. Those leg shots were hurting him.
Yeah,
like at one point, he took the one shot and then he backed up because it was hurting. Like he almost tripped a little bit, and then I saw that one shot where Reyes faked the head shot and then went to the body like a boxer, and that hurt him too. And then just out of nowhere, he just abandons it, And I'm like, that's what lost you the fight right there. It wasn't the backhand that wound up knocking you out. That did beat you, but that's not what like beat you in general. It was you going against your game plan that was working in the first round, and then deciding you wanted to try and trade with them. Right. Like that's like you're making these decisions on the fly that are just bad decisions. Stick with the game plan because that's what was working with you. Like you guys had similar strikes, but it was like he was having success like striking your head.
Yeah.
But you were having success on the head because you had 40 shots to the head. You had 21 shots to the body. You had 3 shot at leg kicks. Like your overall game was nice. Like
his distribution was working well.
Yeah, like he was just divvying it up, and it was having its effects, like you said. But then round 2, he had to be a big tough guy and just go for the head and he abandoned the body and the leg, and then that's what lost him. You got to play it smart, and then he didn't. So
I think an interesting conversation about Reyes going into the fight, like when they were doing the taking off their pants and shit like that. The commentators were talking about how like Reyes had trouble, like I guess it was like a training identity crisis where like he was trying to change things too much. Going into the Jones fight, and then again going into the Yahovich fight, and then going into this fight, he was like, now I have to return to my roots. It's like, well, you've changed so much. It's like, what does your roots look like? You know, like, how do you get back there if you've done a bunch of different strategies? But they were saying like, no, you should just go back to like whatever your training regimen was that got you to the Jones fight. Like, that's what you need to be doing because you've changed too much. You know, and it's almost like now he doesn't even really recognize the fighter that got him to the title fight anymore. He's just trying to make all these adjustments to his game and like be, I have to be better than I was. Well, in reality, the guy who got you to the title fight is probably the guy who needs to show up to your fights now because that's the guy who was winning, you know?
and then the John Jones one, like that wasn't even that far off from the guy that he was. He just picked up the pace because he knew that with how John Jones is, you got to keep moving and get him on his sides, or he's going to wind up beating you with his length. Because that's what John Jones does. He uses his length against you. Yeah. And then he did that perfectly. But then he I don't know what happened from that to Jan. Don't trade with him. Like, you're known for divvying things up, getting the guy in the body. Then you go for the strike after the body, and then you just do volume. And he didn't do that. And then he started to get back to his normal self in this, and then he abandoned it. I don't know what it was that made him abandon it, but he did. And then now that's why he lost. He abandoned his game plan, got suckered into Jiri's fight, which was just trading headshots. And then he got clipped with the backhand, and then he fell down. And then he was down for like 2-3 minutes.
I mean, that's why I think it'd be good to like give him a matchup like Ankalaev, because Ankalaev is going to have him second guessing. He's going to have him, if it gets to a grappling situation, that's a whole new world with that Sambo shit. But even like a matchup like Raychik, I think would be okay, or Rakic would be an okay matchup because at least Rakic is a bit fresher. He's not at the point where he's like constantly changing his game. He's still like, well, I'm still kind of learning. I'm still shaping my game. So I feel like Reyes would have an easier time going, all right, let me take a step back from changing my game and just go back to what I was doing before. A guy like Rakic would allow him to do that. So I think that might be an interesting matchup. And it would also be an opportunity for him to climb back into the top of the top 5, at least get to that, number 2 spot. So I think that would be maybe a good one. Again, if he's not going to take that, then give him Ankalaev once he's in the 5 spot, because I think Ankalaev deserves a shot. I think Ankalaev could beat him unless he makes some serious changes.
I think Ankalaev could beat anybody in this.
I mean, he's got a really good ground game, and that's something you don't see at this weight class very often, is people who have that sophisticated of a ground game. So, I mean, if he just keeps refining that, keeps doing what he's doing with his striking, which has improved vastly, then he's going to be a real problem, even for a guy like Jiri, because if he slips past those hands, I mean, it's a whole new world that I think Jiri is ill-equipped to deal with. If Ankalaev can get him on the ground and get him into that sambo shit, oof, I don't think Jiri can deal with that.
Another Habib guy.
Yeah, basically, if he just uses that approach, I think even a guy like Jiri would have a lot of problems he has no answers to. So
yeah. But is there anything you want to mention before we get going?
I can't think of anything. I didn't. Oh, I was super disappointed to see Sandhagen Dillashaw got scrapped. That sucks. What the fuck? Yeah, I was excited for that. I wanted to see Dillashaw get his ass beat.
Yeah, I'm a big Sandhagen fan. I think if he has the height in the division, and then he's far like the guys that he's far in that division has been pretty well known. Like he did lose to Sterling by submission, but he was they had a good fight up until that point when he got submitted, and then of course he had the crazy knockout of Frankie Edgar.
Right.
Which was just amazing, which I thought would have been maybe like a knockout of the year up until this point, until I saw Jiri do the backhand to Reyes Saturday night. That might take the cake there, but I don't know. Like it's just crazy. Like I was waiting for that. I'm like, okay, Dillashaw's coming back, 2 years removed. They're giving him this fight because basically the winner of this gets the winner of Jan Sterling, whatever the fuck that's going to happen, if that's even going to happen, because it's Sterling's
Well, apparently,
injury.
Yeah, is Sterling, like, apparently he released a CAT scan. He has a concussion or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I saw that a while back. He, like, released some sort of thing that they did, like a test result, and they did at the hospital. He's like, see, that's why I can't fight. I think he's also really afraid of Piotr Jan beating the shit out of him again. I think that's part of it too. But
so you had that, of course. If everybody doesn't know, TJ Dillashaw wound up getting the gash on his head, which he put like a post on social media, and it basically kept him from training. And then he had to pull out of the fight because it happened last week.
I'm curious, how the fuck does that happen? I'm looking it up now. So let's see.
Well, I know just in general because of the gash, and it caused him from being able to train for like a week or two. I don't know if he had to get stitches or not. If he had to get stitches, I could see why.
Apparently, it was a cut over one of his eyes by an accidental headbutt.
Okay.
He said, I'm sad to say that I have to pull out for my fight on May 8th due to a cut I received from a headbutt while drilling. So it happened during training. And they're rescheduling the fight as soon as possible. That's all I can find on it right now. After testing, what? Oh, that they're talking about why he was suspended in 2019.
Okay, yeah.
So
So at least they're trying to reschedule it as soon as possible, which I hope it's June.
I mean, I want to see that fight real bad. I want to see him get his ass beat so bad.
Because I'm like, if you're not going to book this, then you might as well book Jan versus Sandhagen for the interim title.
Right. You know, something like that. Something like that.
But if they are making moves to reschedule this, then at least try and schedule it to June, July at the latest. But I think they can. I think they can work June because they got. This was a fight night, and they got like some fight nights where it doesn't even have a main event, and I think this would be a good spot, like keeping a main event for that, because it will be a good 5-round fight. Test Dillashaw. And then see where Sandhagen is up there, because he did beat Edgar, but then he's lost to Sterling. So getting this win against Dillashaw would give him clout a bit to fight the champion. And then for Dillashaw, he was the champion, then got suspended after losing the belt to Cejudo. So, he's going to want that shot. And this is UFC being – okay, you want that title shot? You got to win this fight first. Yeah. Then you get the shot at that belt again.
Yeah, there's a lot of runaround from the management in terms of letting one who was it? I was thinking of Lewis. Derek Lewis is one example where he's constantly getting backburnered and he's pissed. He hates that shit. He's like, no, I'm done waiting in line. Give me a shot at Ngannou, but Ngannou doesn't want the fight either. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
that's
they tried to with the John Jones not budging on the $30 million mark. I just remember the one guy went out and was like, just pay him what he's worth. Just pay him each guy $10 million, and then they go, we offered him $10 million, but he said no.
Wow.
So
fortunately, he got rid of his management, so hopefully that'll improve things. But I got here that apparently they actually have found an opponent for Donald Cerrone in Vegas 26. It's Alex Morano. I looked on; he's not ranked. I don't know where he's at, so he's below top 15. His name is.
Is it recent? Did they just
1 hour ago?
Okay, there we go. He has an opponent.
You can fight someone now. He's not shadow boxing in there. Winner of Donald Cerrone versus his shadow.
His shadow will win.
I know. I was gonna say, could he beat the shadow though? I don't know.
Let me see if they have it on there.
He's fighting
Alex Morano.
I don't know who he is. He looks like he's below top 15. I don't know where he's ranked. So Donald Cerrone's having to fight down at this point.
Let me bring this guy. Okay, Alex Morano. Let me go to his Tapology right here.
While you're doing that, guess who weighed in on the Jake Paul boxing success? Colby Covington.
Of course.
He says nobody.
Okay, this funny. Guy.
The picture they picked for that article, he's sitting there wearing a MAGA hat. It's like, dude, you got to take the MAGA hat off. It's over. It's
been there, done that. You see, like I said this before, I think I told you, I was like, this guy needs to come out and start supporting the supporting Joe Biden now. That would make the presidents.
He's the president.
I would say make America great again, but I have a picture of Joe Biden now. That would reinvent the wheel right there. But
he's just a president's fighter. He's real into presidents.
Yes. So you got this is weird. Okay, so his last fight was in December. He lost to Showtime Pettis by decision. The fight before that, he beat Reese McKee by decision the month before. So I guess he took a fight with Pettis on short notice.
Isn't Pettis? Didn't he get released? Isn't he somewhere else?
Yeah, Pettis lost in his first fight of PFL. He got dominated by a boxer.
Oh, well.
And then the fight before that in February last year, he got knocked out by Chaos Williams. I think that was that crazy knockout on the John Jones Dominick Reyes card right there. And then before that he beat Max Griffin, Zach Otto, and then Kenan Sung, a couple of mid-tier guys in the division.
Yeah.
But he hasn't fought since December. So I guess maybe he just took the fight just to get reps in.
He stepped in at short notice, is what the article said.
Yeah, so I don't know where they put this on the card. I don't know if it's a main card anymore. Maybe like it's the first fight on there because there's so many changes to this card. In fact, let me bring that up right now.
What does that card even look like at this point? Like, I don't know.
I'll bring the Tapology of the fight right now. Just give me a second while I try and find it on here because all these stuff gets mixed in. What was 261 just happened, right?
We just saw that was Usman and beating the shit out of Masvidal again.
Okay, you see.
While you're doing that, on that note, actually, Chris Weidman is getting a 6-month layoff, a medical suspension because of that.
Oh yeah, I wonder why.
Fucked. I mean, that's kind of fucked that he got suspended, which means he's not like getting paid. I mean, I don't know. Where was he at? Number 11. He might have a few sponsorships because he's also had a long career, but I don't know.
I think he's still going to get paid because like
they're saying he's not.
Well, how is he going to get paid if he's not fighting?
Let me take a look.
That's the question.
So it looks like that's the amount of time it's probably going to take for like all the surgeries and most of the rehab. It looks like. Oh, they also got Jimmy Crute on suspension as well because of that ankle. Oof, gross. Doesn't really say. This is a pretty cursory article here, not too much meat to it.
Okay, I got the thing right here. Let me bring it up. Okay, here's the main card. They got Marina Rodriguez with Michelle Watterson, the main event.
Hold on, who
you got Ben Roth.
Where are they ranked? Those two women, I don't see
Strawweight.
Strawweights. Are they?
It's right there, 7 versus 10.
Yeah, I see it. 7 and 10. Okay. Okay. I guess for a fight night, sure. Here's the next one.
Ben Rothwell, Felipe Lins. This was supposed to be last month on a fight night, and it got rescheduled to this one.
What weight class are they? They're heavyweights?
Heavyweight.
Let's see.
So this is 22 versus 41.
Oh, Jesus.
So they're down there.
God damn.
Then you got Amanda Ribas versus Andrew Hill. This is probably one of my interesting fights of the card right here.
Huh?
It's 16 and 17, but Ribas was before her last fight. She was 10.
I remember that.
And in fact, she lost to Marina Rodriguez, I believe.
That's right. I remember she lost. We talked about her. I remember she lost.
It was on the Poirier McGregor card.
That's right. I can pull those notes again to see who I voted for.
I think I voted against her. You got Neil Magny going up against Jeff Neal, 9 versus 12. That's going to be a very intriguing matchup.
Should be cool.
Yeah, you got Diego Ferrer against Gregor Gillespie. Gillespie was supposed to fight Brad Riddell, but that got niched because of injury. Now he's fighting Ferreira, and then Riddell is going to be fighting Drew Dober, who got dominated by Islam Makovich.
Ah, interesting. I remember the fight. Yeah, who's Dober fighting?
Dober's now fighting Brad Riddell, who was supposed to fight Gillespie. That fight wound up getting niched the day of because of COVID. So I guess they both found opposed. But this is a 12 versus 15, which I think it's like a very good matchup because Gillespie hasn't fought in 2 years. So it's going to be a good test for Ferrer to see if he can make that jump into the top 10 of the lightweight division, because Gillespie was a top 10 guy before he was off for like 2 years. He wound up getting pushed down because of inactivity. So, and then Phil Haas going up against Kyle Dawkins. That's a
Dawkins
matchup.
As in like brother of
yes, he's his brother. Huh. He's a middleweight. And yeah.
Is he ranked? Number 50 or no, number 46.
44 against 46.
Jesus, they're both down there. Holy shit.
Yeah. I don't know who to go with that. And then the last fight on the main card will be like I said, Cerrone against Morano. That's why I thought
how many fights are on that card? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7? Jesus, that's a big main card.
They're gonna wind up cutting one of them.
Yeah, they're gonna have to move one of those down. Holy shit, that's crazy.
I think they wind up moving Dawkins and Haas. I think they'll wind up making that like the main event of the prelim, because I don't think you take off Don Cerrone just because his namesake. It's Don Cerrone, even with how so he's been of late, his name does carry a little bit of weight on the fight night cards, and then with him only having 2 fights left, and then he's retiring, so this is going to be one, and then they'll have one left after this. So I think they're do the right thing and just have him like the first fight of the main card.
All right. And I do like watching Phil Haas fight, though. He's a fun guy to watch.
Yeah. And he just right now he's just a one trick. I wouldn't say one trick pony, but like he puts all his energy into like the first like minute. And then
he's got a decent enough like wrestling background. He's very good if he can get into his wrestling group. He's got a lot of energy for that. I think the problem is his striking is still unrefined. So it's kind of like how they were talking about the difference between Strickland and Jotko, where Strickland wasn't wasting any energy in his striking. He was just placing those shots where he needed to place them. Whereas Jotko was just swinging for the hills and it burned him out because nothing was landing. So I feel like that's kind of Phil Haas's problem. He's got a lot of power. He just burns a ton of energy trying to use it. What he should be trying to do is using that wrestling to set up the striking.
Yeah. It's that when he does the striking, he does like this the overhand style like club run shot where it's like if he connects it, he's gonna knock you out, but he always goes wide, and then he misses you, and then he puts so much energy into those. He then tries to come back, combating that with like the takedown, and then half the time he doesn't get it, and then he winds up just the first round time, like you said, time himself out. But this card could have been so much better. Like if they would have still had, what's crazy is if they would have still had the TJ Dillashaw and Sandhagen, that would have been another main card fight. So they would have had 8 main card fights on here, and they would have had to chop 2 off of here just to make 6 on there, and it would have been a really viable, really underrated card as a whole.
Right.
But now it's like, okay, our main event was lost. Our co-main event got cut in half, and because of Diego Sanchez, and then that's why the women are a main event. So it's like from one small swoop of a couple of days, this main card went from like a 8 out of 10 to like a 5 or 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean it's still going to be an exciting card. I think it's going to be an interesting fight. Especially because of how many matchups are on that card. No matter what, it's going to be a big card. But
I just look at it, I'm like, damn, what happened to this?
I mean, they got to start it early then, like at 2 instead of like at 9, like this last one was. That was way too late, especially for like six fights. Fuck that.
Well, usually that's what they've been doing. They start at like 8.
Well, here they start at 9. And then the earlier ones, they do 7. And then, like, sometimes they'll throw in, like, oh, we're going to start at 2 p.m. just because. Like, we need to do that more. That's well,
they did that for, like, a reason in itself. They did that because of what was going to show on ESPN that night. That's why they did the 2 p.m. one. But here, like, I think it usually comes on at, like, 8. Which is like 7 o'clock your time. That's when the main card will start, and then they usually do like the prelims at like 5.
The last few have started at 9. Last few have started the main cards at 9, which is kind of annoying. But
I rather them do like the 8 o'clock, and then by like that way, if you have 6 fights, at least the main event will get on by at least 11:30 at the latest. Because they can usually game plan for that with it being at 8 o'clock. Run time, especially with 6 fights, but on this 7 or 8, who knows? But that's what we're looking at the week ahead. We got the UFC Fight Night card coming on here, headlined by Marina Rodriguez versus Michelle Watterson. My preview of this card will come out Thursday with me and my buddy Jim, who usually does the previews with me. That'll get released on Thursday. I just released the PFL Week 3 preview for this Thursday. The PFL Week 3 card, it will be Thursday night on ESPN2. I believe it's at 9 o'clock as always. Headlined by Fabricio Verdum versus Renan Ferreira, and then the co-main event is, I think, Miranda Reyes against Kayla Harrison, the real judo queen, not Ronda Rousey. So you can check that out on ESPN2. And then I'm going to be releasing sometime in the next day or two my Bellator 258 preview a video, which is headlined by Juan Archuleta versus Sergio Pettis for the bantamweight championship title for Bellator, and then the co-main event, which was supposed to be Rumble Johnson versus Yoel Romero, is now Anthony Rumble Johnson versus Jose Augusto, since Yoel Romero had to withdraw from the matchup, which sucks.
Wow.
So he got replaced in the Grand Prix by Jose Augusto on 10 days notice. So that's the co-main event. And then we have a nice third fight on the card, which is MVP, which is Michael Page going up against Derek Anderson. So definitely check out my my preview for that. That will be the Bellator 258 will be this Friday night in its normal time slot. That's why they've been doing PFL on Thursday, because they knew Bellator was going to come back. But definitely check that out, and then check out the preview of UFC. And then, as always, next Monday at 8:30, tune in for our recap of the UFC fight night that's coming up at 8:30. And you can watch us, as always, on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. But I'm your host, D-Bake. This is my co-host, Miles Long. Yo. You can find our stuff for Cage My IQ on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. And then don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. All of our content is on there, so anything you miss, just go to the YouTube channel under videos, and then you can find out all of our content there. And then don't hesitate to comment on anything, and I'll comment back on it. And then we're slowly growing the Twitch channel. So if you're into Twitch, subscribe, follow our channel on Twitch right there at Cage My IQ, and then let us know what you think of that. But I think that's it for us today. Once again, this was our recap of UFC Fight Night. Dominick Reyes versus Jiri Prochazka. I am D-Bake. This is Miles. You guys have a wonderful rest of your night.
See you guys.
See ya.
Thank you for watching this episode of Cage My IQ on the Sports Box. Please remember to follow us on all of our social media outlets. On Facebook at Sportsbox Show, Twitter at Sportsbox Show, Instagram at The Sportsbox Show. Find us on YouTube and join Outside the Box, our Facebook sports discussion group. The Sports Box is brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports in Hamilton. Showcase Sports for the elite athlete. And also our friends over at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and use promo code THEBOX at sign up for 10 free points. Thank you for joining us.